Okay, let's unpack this. We are doing a deep dive today that really tackles one of those big historical blind spots, the period between 1200 and 1450.
Right.
We're calling this one the global tapestry because, well, when you pull back from just one continent, you realize the world was anything but standing still.
That blind spot is so critical because for most people, when you say this era, they immediately think of medieval Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, decentralized kingdoms, the Crusades, political chaos, the whole narrative just defaults to stagnation.
And that completely misses the point.
Yeah.
It misses the fact that while Europe was, let's say, dealing with its own localized crises, the rest of the world was just experiencing this profound acceleration.
We're talking massive structured empires, technological innovation that truly changed the game, and these incredible trade routes crisscrossing the globe.
So what really defines this whole 250-year span, whether you're looking at Beijing, Baghdad, or Tenochtitlan, is this one singular focus on state building.
Absolutely. And our mission today is to dig into the source material you provided and really define the core strategies leaders were using to centralize power.
How did they make so much money? How did they keep people loyal?
And how did they use ideology, religion or philosophy as the glue holding it all together? We have to look at this comparatively, connecting what seem like really disparate dots across continents.
So let's start with what was, I think, the undisputed technological and economic engine of the world at the time. East Asia.
Specifically the Song Dynasty in China.
Right. If we're looking for the gold standard of state organization in the year 1200, you find it there.
Oh, without a doubt. The Song Dynasty was just unparalleled in its scale and its sophistication. And their secret wasn't necessarily military might, though they were powerful.
No.
It was maybe the most enduring state-building mechanism ever devised, a highly efficient, centralized bureaucracy. And that entire system was rooted in Confucianism.
And the mechanism that made that bureaucracy work was the civil service exam. For you, the listener, the big insight here is that they were trying to base their government on merit, not just who your father was.
Right. You wanted a job in government, you had to master the Confucian classics. These were the core texts on how society and government were supposed to function.
So that had a dual function then.
It did. On one hand, it created this highly competent administrative class that could actually run things, tax collection, canal maintenance, all of it.
But it also legitimized the state itself.
Exactly. It sent a message. Power is earned through knowledge and virtue, not just inherited.
But hang on, how meritocratic was it, really? I mean, getting the education you needed to pass those exams, that was mostly for the elite, the wealthy landowners, wasn't it?
That's a fair point, and it's a vital nuance. It wasn't a perfect democracy, not by a long shot, but it was certainly more meritocratic than the hereditary systems that were common pretty much everywhere else. And crucially, it ensured that the people running the government, even if they were rich, were highly educated and culturally aligned with the state's goals.
And what do you mean by culturally aligned? That brings us to filial piety, right?
Filial piety is the key. It's that deep-seated respect for elders and ancestors, this idea that you know your place in the family.
And the state just scaled that up.
They co-opted it completely. If you're taught from birth to respect your father's authority, it's a tiny leap to respecting the emperor's authority. He's basically the father of the whole nation. It was a cultural feedback loop.
And to govern this massive society, you need unimaginable wealth. The Song Dynasty was the economic engine because they mastered agriculture.
And the breakthrough was Champa rice, which they adopted from Vietnam.
This is where that population boom comes from.
It is. Champa rice was fast ripening and drought resistant. And why that matters is it allowed for double cropping. They could get 2 harvests a year.
More food per acre means more people.
Which means more labor, more soldiers, and most importantly, more taxpayers.
And to manage all that, they had infrastructure like the Grand Canal, a massive man-made river connecting north and south.
It was essential. And when you add in technologies they pioneered, like gunpowder and mass-producing steel, well, you have a benchmark for state efficiency that no one else could really touch. That's the first major thread in our tapestry.
Okay, so let's pivot from that hyper-centralized powerhouse to a region showing the complete opposite, Dar al-Islam, the House of Islam.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because here political power was fracturing, but cultural vitality was just soaring.
The old central authority, the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad, was pretty much falling apart.
Severely weakened. The sources show a map being carved up by new forces. You have the Seljuks, a Turkish group, expanding across the Middle East, and of course the Mamluks taking control of Egypt.
And for anyone listening who doesn't know the Mamluks, that story is just fascinating. These were originally military slave soldiers who managed to seize power for themselves.
It's a profound example of how fragmentation can lead to new, really unexpected centers of power.
So the political unity was gone?
But a cultural and intellectual cohesion based on Islam not only persisted, it actually accelerated. While Europe was decentralized, Islamic scholars at places like the House of Wisdom in Baghdad were. Well, they were synthesizing knowledge.
That intellectual bridge idea is so important. They weren't just saving Greek philosophy.
No, not at all. They were absorbing math from India, papermaking from China, and then building on all of it. They were a global filter and an amplifier of knowledge.
And the scientific leaps were just monumental.
I mean, take math. Nasir al-Din al-Tusi did foundational work in trigonometry that was vital for navigation. In medicine, they were performing complex surgeries. That cultural thriving was the glue.
A glue that was strengthened by missionaries, specifically the Sufis.
Yes, the mystics. Those who focused on a personal, ecstatic connection with God.
They were basically the spiritual influencers of their day.
That's a great way to put it. They didn't rely on state power. They used persuasive, charismatic devotion. They traveled, they spread Islam through personal interactions, often blending with local customs.
Which made conversion much more palatable and lasting.
And that's the insight for state building here. Cultural unity and innovation can sustain a region, sometimes even better than a central government can, especially when that government is in decline.
So now, if we move south, we hit a literal crossroads of trade and religion in South and Southeast Asia.
India first gives us this incredible religious mosaic.
In the north, you have the Muslim Delhi Sultanate, while in the south, the massive Hindu Vijayanagara Empire is dominant.
And this religious tension created the space for a really fascinating social response, the Bhakti movement within Hinduism.
Right, this is a devotional movement.
It was. It focused on a personal connection with one deity, and it was available to everyone, no matter their caste.
It's so interesting how that personal, mystical approach mirrors what the Sufis were doing in Islam.
It wasn't an official policy or anything, but culturally, it created some common ground. It helped bridge the gap between two huge belief systems in a way that politics just couldn't.
And then just east of there, in Southeast Asia, the state-building model is completely different.
Totally different. Here, power wasn't about bureaucracy or even religion. It was about controlling the sea. Empires like Majapahit and Srivijaya became astronomically wealthy.
They weren't focused on conquering huge swaths of land.
No, their whole strategy was about controlling and taxing the choke points of the ocean trade routes, the straits connecting the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea.
So they controlled the water, they controlled the cash.
Exactly, and that shows you something critical about state revenue back then. Sometimes the most stable and wealthy states aren't the biggest, they're just the most strategically located.
Okay, so we've seen bureaucracy, ideological glue, and trade. Let's make a big jump now to the Americas and Africa, where these powerful civilizations were operating completely on their own.
And that isolation is such a vital point. They developed these massive, sophisticated states entirely independently, often solving problems in really unique ways.
In Mexico, you had the Aztecs, or the Mexica. They built a huge tribute empire.
Their main state-building tool was just raw, organized military power. Their revenue wasn't cash. It was tribute payments demanded from conquered peoples.
Food, goods, labor.
Exactly. And their capital, Tenochtitlan, was an engineering marvel. A huge island city, bigger and cleaner than London or Paris at the time. It really speaks to their administrative capacity.
Now contrast that with the Incas, running a massive empire in the Andes Mountains. Their key mechanism was the mita system.
The mita system was compulsory public service, and this is the key takeaway. Since they didn't really have currency or the wheel, the Inca state took its revenue in the form of time and effort.
So every household had to contribute labor.
Yes, to state projects. Building their incredible road network, their temples, those huge agricultural terraces on the mountainsides. It was pure, mobilized organization.
It's just amazing what they built without pack animals like horses.
It really is. Now, shifting to Africa, we find states that were just as powerful, maybe even wealthier. The Mali Empire in West Africa was the absolute powerhouse of the region.
Built on gold and salt.
The trans-Saharan trade in gold and salt. Their power peaked with Mansa Musa. His Hajj, his pilgrimage to Mecca, is legendary.
He brought so much gold with him that he actually crashed the economy in places like Egypt.
He did. But that Hajj wasn't just a religious trip. It was high-level geopolitical branding. He was broadcasting the immense wealth and stability of the Mali Empire to the entire known world.
Putting Mali on the map, literally.
Absolutely. And elsewhere in Africa, you had the Swahili city-states on the east coast, trading with India and China and Great Zimbabwe in the south, building these massive stone walls without mortar. The scale of organization was just enormous.
Which finally brings us to Europe. And we've saved Europe for last because, compared to the efficiency of Song China or the wealth of Mali, Europe was complicated.
Decentralized is the word. That is the defining characteristic. Instead of a big, unified empire, you had feudalism.
Which is basically a system of military obligation, right? Kings give land to lords.
In exchange for knights and loyalty.
Who protect the peasants, or serfs who do all the work.
Exactly. And the economic system that locked all this in place was manorialism. We have to be clear on those terms. Feudalism is the political deal. Manorialism is the local farm economy.
Everything revolved around the lord's manor.
A very localized, self-sufficient system. It was good for local survival, maybe, but it was terrible for creating large-scale state power and tax revenue.
And the only thing tying it all together was the Roman Catholic Church,
which often had more power than the kings themselves. It just highlights how fragmented political authority in Europe really was.
The contrast with Song China couldn't be sharper.
You've got a continent run on local loyalty versus a state run on a national bureaucracy and cash. Europe was playing catch-up for centuries.
But the sources do hint at change. The Crusades, for all their failures, ironically sparked new interest in global trade and ideas.
And by the end of this period, around 1450, you see the first flickers of the Renaissance. It's the very beginning of the pivot that's going to define the next era.
So let's tie these threads together. Let's look at this global tapestry. We've really identified 4 major successful models of state building, all happening at the same time.
First, you have centralized bureaucracy and technology, mastered by Song China.
Then, the Islamic world, relying on intellectual innovation and religious unity to hold things together.
Third, Africa and Southeast Asia harnessed strategic trade networks on land and sea as their main source of revenue.
And fourth, the Americas showed us how you could build powerful states using mandated labor and tribute.
They were all intensely powerful, dynamic, and organized, yet fundamentally separate systems. We've defined how they each built their own stability between 1200 and 1450.
Which raises an important final question for you, the listener, to think about.
We've established that every major thread in this tapestry was woven using strong, unique methods. So what happens, not just economically, but socially, culturally, politically, when these powerful, robust, and often isolated systems actually start to collide and connect globally after 1450, because that collision defines the modern world we live in?